Good morning and welcome back. This is World News coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Saria Stremska. The US could shut off Starlink internet service for Ukraine if the war-torn country doesn't agree to a deal that would give the US access to Ukraine-based deposits of critical elements and minerals. That's according to sources cited by Reuters. Let's bring in our correspondent Oskar Terji, who is in Kyiv. Good morning, Oz. Good to see you. So, how was that information received in Ukraine?
Well, obviously, this information is not going to be received well. However, it should be pointed out that Donald Trump said himself that he expects a mineral deal to be signed soon. What is more alarming for Kyiv is the US threatening Ukraine to sign this deal. US negotiators threatening to withhold the use of Starlink satellite technology for Ukraine. That's Elon Musk's SpaceX. That's his product that was given to Ukraine at the start of the war to allow them soldiers to use internet access and GPS guidance and so on for certain weapon systems on the front lines where signal jammers are used to block mobile phone signal. So this is already critically important infrastructure for Ukraine. They can't afford to lose Starlink. So this threat is obviously going to be taken very seriously by Kyiv. So, but as I said, this follows after Zelensky turned down Scott Bessent, the U.S. Treasury Secretary's proposal on rare earth minerals. That proposal has been looked at again by the U.S. So they are still in the negotiating phases of it. Now, it's understood that Keith Kellogg, the U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine and Russia, also brought up this Starlink issue again to Zelensky in their meeting on Thursday. That's according to Reuters sources speaking to the Reuters news agency. Now, we also understand that the US has planned a proposal, a UN draft resolution on Ukraine and Russia, splitting from their European allies. They are not co-sponsoring the joint European statement on the war in Ukraine that they have sponsored for the last 2 years. This time they're sponsoring their own agreement, which does not label Russia as the aggressor in the war in Ukraine, and one that has been received praise so far from the Russian UN ambassador, Vasily Nebenzia. So this is obviously a situation that Ukraine is trying to navigate as the US administration clearly is pivoting towards a more pro-Russian stance in these negotiations, and the Ukrainians are trying their best to keep the US on side. But with these kinds of threats and this war of words directed at Zelensky from Donald Trump, this is becoming an increasingly precarious situation for Kyiv to navigate diplomatically.
Right, I fully agree. Oskar Terji reporting from Kyiv. Thank you, Os. Much appreciated. And of course, we'll be going back to us throughout the day for more updates. Ukraine is working with the US to prepare a draft agreement aimed at strengthening relations between the two countries, President Zelensky revealed during his Friday night address, stressing that a peace strategy must be created in cooperation between Europe and the United States.
Today, the teams of Ukraine and the United States are working on a draft agreement between our governments. This agreement has the potential to strengthen our relations, and, most importantly, the details must be arranged in a way that ensures it works. I hope for a result, a fair result. Today, I had a very substantive discussion with the Prime Minister of Luxembourg about various ideas and proposals in Europe aimed at peace and security guarantees. The main conclusion is that Europe must and can do much more to achieve a real and lasting peace, and it is possible. We and our European partners have clear proposals, and based on them we can implement a European strategy. It is crucial that this happens together with the United States.
They don't have any cards, but they play it tough, said US President Donald Trump, referring to Ukraine's position in peace negotiations with Russia. Trump also said that his administration is making, quote, amazing progress towards ending the war.
It's been a very somewhat historic 4 weeks, and we have a couple of things in the works. We're negotiating with Russia, Ukraine, trying to get that horrible situation over with. It's terrible. It's just so terrible. I see pictures that you fortunately don't get to see. You don't want to see them. And that is a killing field. You have young soldiers being killed, thousands a week, and we got to get it over with. It's bad for Russia, and it's bad for Ukraine, and it's bad for us on a humanitarian basis. I've had very good talks with Putin, and I've had not such good talks with Ukraine. They don't have any cards, but they play it tough. But we're not going to let this continue. This war is terrible. It would have never happened if I were president, but it did happen, so I got stuck with it, and the whole world is stuck with it. We're making amazing progress. I mean, we've made more progress on that situation, which is Ukraine, than they have in 3 years. Again, it's so sad that it began.
Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs Radosław Sikorski is in Washington, where he met with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Friday. Rubio reportedly spoke about the need for NATO allies to increase defense investments, as well as the need for fair and reciprocal market access for the U.S.
Speaking to the press after the meeting, the Polish foreign minister was reluctant to comment on whether he understood the U.S. negotiating tactics with Russia, but said that the American side appears to be committed to a lasting peace. Sikorski also declined to comment on what Rubio told him about the peace talks in Saudi Arabia, which took place earlier this week. The meeting in Riyadh did not include Ukrainian representatives, and the relationship between the US and Ukraine has soured even more after Trump called Zelensky a dictator, who in turn said that Trump lives in a disinformation space.
Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha took to platform X to remark on the conversations he had with both his Polish counterpart Radosław Sikorski and American Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He underscored his country's commitment to lasting peace 2 days shy of the 3rd anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
I spoke with Radosław Sikorski to thank Poland for its firm support and follow up on the fruitful conversation between our leaders. We discussed our cooperation in international organizations and coordinated positions ahead of the 3rd anniversary of Russia's full-scale aggression.
Voters across Germany are set to cast their ballots to elect the country's new government on Sunday. According to the latest polls, the CDU is expected to take first place with 30% of the vote, followed by the controversial far-right AfD party with 20%. Olaf Scholz's SPD is trailing behind and is expected to get around 16% of the vote, with the Greens coming in fourth with 13%. The candidates had the chance to make their closing statements on Friday evening. At the final campaign event, CDU leader Friedrich Merz said that the first task of the new government should be to give Germany more weight in Europe. Merz has also once again ruled out the possibility of a coalition with the AfD. Olaf Scholz focused much of his final campaign speech on the US criticizing Vice President J.D. Vance after his controversial speech at the Munich Security Conference, in which he decried Europe's restrictive laws, immigration crisis, declining safety, and crackdown on free speech. The German election campaign only has a few days left until voters go to the polls on Sunday. Over the last week, German voters have been bombarded online with all kinds of disinformation and AI-generated content, especially to the benefit of the far-right Alternative for Germany, or AfD. Here is more.
According to this article's screenshot, German Christian Democrat leader and Chancellor hopeful Friedrich Merz attempted suicide in 2017. There is only one problem. It's completely made up, created by a Russian fake news project.
So Russian propaganda has been running these kinds of disinformation campaigns also in Germany for quite a while now, for a few years.
Most politicians have at one point been targeted by such smear campaigns, but one leader is mostly absent. Alice Weidel, the chancellor candidate for the far-right AfD. That's because it's online supporters of the AfD and AfD politicians themselves that spread such content most enthusiastically, says one expert.
Most of the disinformation we see is just produced the traditional way by politicians who claim things that are just not true, or that are sort of framed in a way that they become misleading.
While it's sometimes hard to differentiate the bots from actual AfD supporters, the message is consistent.
I want a green future. I want sunflowers. I want a healthy environment for my children. That is why on February 23rd I will of course vote for the best party that Germany has to offer. Only AfD, vital for Chancellor.
The use of AI has also been heartily embraced in this election cycle. Researchers writing a report on AI in social media campaigns told TVP World.
The AfD were part of a set of far-right parties across Europe that were using Gen AI. So first early adopters, and they're continuing to do that.
Most of these videos and imagery are highly racist and very problematic in that sense.
Willkommen zur Tagesschau in einfacher Sprache.
The fake content is not always disinformation or directly campaign material. This doctored clip of a news program simply shows a marching band to what has become the unofficial AfD theme. Researchers point out that the effect of such frivolous content is still unclear.
And such videos do clearly address or target first-time voters.
As one of the experts pointed out, simply using facts does not work against disinformation, as they simply say what many voters want to hear.
And we continue in Germany. German police have arrested a man suspected in a stabbing attack, which took place on Friday evening near the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin and left a tourist seriously injured. The arrest was made 3 hours after the attack. According to the police, there isn't any indication of a motive for the attack. The victim, a 30-year-old tourist from Spain, is currently in a hospital and is expected to make a full recovery. The incident comes just 2 days ahead of crucial parliamentary elections in which violent incidents and terrorist attacks have been one of the main talking points. Slovakians took to the streets across the country on Friday to mark 7 years since the murder of a young investigative journalist, Jan Kuciak, and his fiancée. But these rallies are more than an act of remembrance for the killed couple. They're also a vote of no confidence for the current Prime Minister of Slovakia, Robert Fico. Our correspondent Paweł Trzaskowski has more.
The Friday's protests in Bratislava are already over. They lasted for a bit more than 1 hour, and when I asked the main organizer about the surprising duration of this demonstration, he told me that this is a part of Slovak protesting culture, that the demonstrations here are brief, orderly, safe, but persistent. And when I asked him about the reason for today's demonstration, this is the answer that he gave me.
We are against our prime minister because our prime minister decided to take Slovakia to Russia. It means that he's looking only for a relationship with Mr. Putin, and we are really we as Slovaks feel that we have to protect our country and be part of the European Union and NATO, and to be aligned with our partners in Europe. And Mr. Fico is working everything against it, so we don't like it.
All in all, protests on such a scale have not been seen in Slovakia since the Velvet Revolution of 1989. But everything changed 7 years ago when an investigative journalist, Jan Kuciak, and his partner were killed. And the protests that started there forced the Prime Minister Fico to resign from his post. The organizers of these demonstrations, the ones that started in January this year, are hoping to achieve the same result. From Bratislava, Slovakia, for TVP World, I'm Paweł Trzaskowski.
And we conclude with health-related news. Flu has become rampant in Poland, where the number of cases has more than tripled compared to last year. What experts find alarming is that on top of the high infection rate, some 1,000 people have died as a result of influenza and its complications since the beginning of the flu season in September.
The spike in the number of cases has led to shortages of antiviral medicines in pharmacies. Medical experts say the situation has escalated into an epidemic, but weekly data shows that the flu wave is waning, with 30,000 fewer cases now compared to last week. According to Poland's health minister Izabela Leszczyna, the high infection rates may be due to a low vaccination rate. Only 5% of the population gets a flu shot each year.
And that's a wrap for our news bulletin. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for more.